you are in for a treat. I bumped into Adam Strauss at the Psychedelic Science 2017 conference in Oakland in 2017. Yes, indeed. No wonder, what a surprise. And they had this kind of banquet on the Friday or the Saturday evening at that conference, and they had a few psychedelic comedians, of whom Adam was one. And just loved what he did. I think it was from his monologue, The Mushroom Cure, which I think the Chicago Tribune said was arrestingly honest and howlingly funny. He's wonderful, he's just great, he's brilliant, and he's funny. And please welcome Adam Strauss. Hello, Adam. Can you hear me, Adam? Take it away.
All right. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for that intro, Stephen. We seem to be having some bandwidth issues, maybe going through Hubcast. I'm not sure, but I'll just soldier on and hope this is broadcasting. So it is slightly odd seeing my own reflection in a 15-second delay. It reminds me of a trip I once had, in fact. So, all right. You know what? I'm going to get rid of my own image because this is phenomenally distracting, seeing this delay. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, I will trust the universe that this is coming through, even though there seem to be perhaps some technical issues on my end. Always the way you want to start out a performance is apologizing for technical issues that may or may not actually be happening. But no, well, thank you, everyone. I don't even know who's here. It's an odd thing doing comedy when there's no possibility of getting any audience reaction. It feels uniquely desperate and needy. But no, I am glad to be here, and I know it's late. I will try to keep this relatively brief, though I will say, you know, I've done enough psychedelics to be pretty convinced that time is just a construct in the human mind. And actually, there's more and more evidence of this. Physicists, this is a true thing, physicists cannot define time mathematically the way they can define, say, gravity or the speed of light. Physicists, they really don't understand time. This is becoming more and more clear. But they refuse to acknowledge this, physicists. They're very arrogant. And it actually upsets me. It really does, to the point I've actually been organizing protests throughout the country at various university physics departments. I'm in Boston right now, and earlier today, I was leading a big protest in front of MIT. What do we want? The acknowledgement that time is an illusion. When do we want it? So, all right, and then I look back at my screen and see myself delayed. Timing in comedy is particularly important, so we will hope, even though time is an illusion, that somehow the timing and audio and video are coming through in sync. So, but yeah, whatever technical challenges we may or may not be experiencing, I am genuinely excited to be here at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference. I am a big proponent of all of those nouns. Spirit, I certainly think we're seeing more and more clearly the limits of the Western materialist worldview. Spirit is necessary for us to navigate forward in our development collectively. Plants, I love plants. I couldn't breathe without plants. They make the oxygen I breathe. They synthesize many of the molecules that I ingest for my health or my recreation or my spiritual development. And medicine, I think in 2020, we all need a lot of medicine, individually and collectively. We need a lot of healing. So, as Stephen said, we've been trying to make this happen, make my presence at this conference happen in the flesh since 2017. And it's happening not in the flesh, but I'm glad it is happening nonetheless. And also, it's just a great conference, looking over the speakers, just a lot of really eminent theoreticians, researchers, people who have not just expertise and knowledge, but deep wisdom and vision about psychedelics. And then you have me, who evidently can't even use Zoom properly. Why am I here? What are my credentials? Well, my story is I had very severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. If anyone has OCD, raise your hand 6 times. Clearly a line that works much better with a live audience, but here we are. So I've been on all sorts of medications, antidepressants, benzodiazepines, antipsychotics. Nothing had helped. And then I read a study out of University of Arizona where they found that psilocybin containing mushrooms, actually just psilocybin in the case of that study, but basically it seemed like mushrooms had a lot of efficacy in treating obsessive-compulsive disorder. So I embarked on a program of vigilante psychopharmacology. I tried to cure myself. And I do have, Stephen mentioned the mushroom cure, which is not what you're seeing right now. It's a theatrical monologue, but it recounts the true story of how I tried to cure my OCD with psychedelics. And whenever I tell people this, they always ask me, they're like, well, did it work? Did you cure yourself? And I always tell them the same thing. I say, come on, just buy tickets, all right? And then they're always like, but I'm your mother. I'm just concerned about you. So anyway, I won't tell you the whole story, but I will say I once took a huge dose of mushrooms. This was about an hour ago. So here we are, guys. All right. But yeah, it is great to be here, and it's also just really gratifying to see the growth of the psychedelic movement. I started working with psychedelics to treat my OCD back in 2007, and I've been doing the mushroom cure since 2012. And just even in the last 8 years, in the last 2 years, there's been a tremendous amount of momentum. And it's a positive thing, of course, but I think there are some concerns of, does this change sort of the soul of the psychedelic movement as it becomes more mainstream? And certainly we are seeing changes. MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies that sponsors my show, I've seen them grow just really, really rapidly in recent years. And I think it's great, but I do hope as MAPS and other similar organizations grow, they start to implement this sort of corporate policies that large organizations typically have. Specifically, I want to see MAPS doing mandatory workplace drug testing. I think that's important. I want to see people get hauled into the MAPS HR office like, listen, Jeff, we got your drug test results back. Very disappointing. You have almost no drugs in your system. I mean, no MDMA, no LSD. Your cannabis levels, they're healthy enough, but let's be honest, that's probably just secondhand smoke from Rick Doblin's office. So, I'm going to let this one go. But next test, if you don't show at least moderate levels of psilocybin, I think we're going to have to let you go. I mean, MAPS is a drug-free environment. So yeah, man, we got to keep the straight people out of this movement, is what I'm saying. And I feel like that last bit might have ruffled some feathers, not because I implied Rick Doblin smokes a lot of weed. Rick Doblin smokes a lot of weed. But because I referred to psychedelics as drugs, and people don't like that. They're medicine. And don't get me wrong, psychedelics absolutely are medicine. They can be uniquely effective medicine for a whole range of conditions. But I don't want to reduce them to being solely medicine, because they can do things that other medicines can't. I mean, I've never taken extra strength Tylenol and had a telepathic conversation with a tree. So I guess what I'm saying is, yes, let's not downplay the medicinal aspects of psychedelics, but also let's keep psychedelics weird. Let's not categorize them so rigidly. But to be clear, the medicalization of psychedelics is certainly what is growing this whole movement most rapidly right now, and not just on the nonprofit side with organizations like MAPS, and of course this conference, Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, is a nonprofit, and they're certainly doing it for the love. But there are a lot of new entrants into the psychedelic space who are not doing it for the love. They are doing it for their money. There are something like 5 companies have gone public trying to profit from psychedelics just in 2020. And a lot of people are understandably very upset about this. But I don't know, listen, I feel like if you're an investor looking to make a buck, I would much rather you put your money into psychedelics rather than something that is threatening the very survival of humanity, like oil companies or Facebook. So I think we have to pick our battles there. But make no mistake, The commercialization of psychedelics is happening. I think it's unstoppable at this point. And you know what that means? We're going to start seeing advertisements for psychedelics. I think in Canada, you're not allowed to advertise pharmaceuticals directly to consumers, but in the States, we're bombarded with ads for drugs on TV, online, social media. It's constant. And psychedelics definitely going to follow that trend. I don't think it's going to be too long before you're going to see things like this. Enlightenment. Wouldn't you like to see through the illusory duality of all existence, thereby losing your alienation and fear of death? Of course you would. But with your busy modern lifestyle, who has the time? 5-MeO-DMT. 8 out of 10 shamans recommend 5-MeO-DMT. Enlightenment. In 8 minutes or less. I'm going to pause for a moment where I'm going to optimistically assume there is some laughter. I have to say the timing of doing a show with no audience reaction is disconcerting, to say the least, especially with, I am still seeing my video image in the corner, and it's like a 15-second delay. It's, oh, yeah, good facial expressions there, Adam. What if I just critiqued my own set in, I was going to say real time, but who knows what that word means, what that phrase means. But anyway, the point is, psychedelic ads, they're coming, man. They're coming. Like it or not, they're coming. Here's another one I think you're going to see before too long. Want to expand your consciousness but not your waistline? Try ayahuasca light. Ayahuasca light. All of the entities, none of the calories. And the whole ayahuasca thing, this to me is one of the most unexpected developments in the psychedelic space, the very rapid mainstream popularity of ayahuasca, because to me, the actual attributes of ayahuasca sound on paper singularly unappealing. Like the actual attributes of ayahuasca, they sound like anti-drug propaganda. You know what I mean? Like, you know, anti-drug propaganda, the sort of lies they've told us to try to get us from not doing other drugs. Medicines. You know what I'm talking about, though. Like MDMA puts holes in your brain. If you do LSD once, you'll love fish forever. Vicious, vicious lies. It actually takes at least 3 LSD trips to become a fish fan. Really, it depends how good your L is. It's about 1,000 micrograms total, I think, according to the research. But ayahuasca, it's the only drug or medicine, whatever term you prefer, where people are like, oh man, I was so terrified. I thought I was dying. I was vomiting everywhere. It was the greatest night of my life. I think I'm going to do it again tonight. Actually, I think I'm going to up the dose. But of course, the reason ayahuasca is popular is not because of the purging and the profound terror that can sometimes accompany the experiences. Its popularity is due to its well-deserved reputation for healing. They say that one night of ayahuasca is the equivalent of 10 years of therapy, which means that I personally have had 190 years of therapy. I feel like I should be way more stable, but you know, it has been healing for me, though. My journey with ayahuasca was, I started, usually I live in New York City. Now with the pandemic, I'm traveling around a lot because it seems like a great time to be in enclosed spaces with poor ventilation. But no, I'm in Boston right now. Then I'll be in the SF Bay Area for a few months. I don't know why I'm telling you where I'm going to be. It's not like you're going to come see me perform live. So force of habit. Anyway, but yeah, I first did ayahuasca in New York. I did 4 ceremonies there, and it was a little weird after ceremony getting in an Uber and going home. Though I will say my Uber drivers were thrilled because I gave extravagant tips for my post-ceremony Uber rides. You know, because I just felt so clearly we're all one. So essentially, I was just tipping myself. It wasn't even generosity, really. So I did 4 ceremonies in New York. And then I was like, yeah, you know, what would it be like taking ayahuasca without constant sirens intruding into the experience? So I went down to Peru, and I went to a retreat center there called Niue Rao, which I very strongly recommend. And I was initially supposed to be there for about a week and a half and do 6 ceremonies. I wound up extending and did 10 ceremonies over 2.5 weeks, but my 6th ceremony actually was my strongest because that ceremony, thinking it was going to be my last, I wanted to go out with a bang, so to speak. And so I upped the dosage a little bit, just took a little bit more than I'd previously taken. And if you've done ayahuasca, you know the dose response curve is not always linear. And in this case, it certainly wasn't, because very quickly it became overwhelmingly intense and just profoundly horrifying. And I became convinced that I was dying. I was certain I was having a heart attack. And I was not happy about this, to say the least. I was screaming and writhing around. I was that dude in the Maloka, basically. Sort of a ayahuasca party foul, if you will. But just harsh and everyone else is mellow. But I couldn't help myself. I thought I was just completely losing it and crying and praying and wailing and screaming. And everyone, the facilitators, the shaman, plural, there were multiple shaman. I think the plural of shaman is shaman. They were all trying to help me. They were really trying to help me. But the way they were trying to help me was by singing to me, because in traditional Amazonian plant medicine, at least in the Shipibo tradition, the real healing modality is considered song. The ayahuasca, the medicine, just facilitates the singing, but the singing is really, my understanding as a layperson, is ultimately at least as important in terms of shifting energy. And for the past week and a half, drinking ayahuasca at this retreat center, I was totally convinced that the singing was all I needed. I was like, this is fixing everything. It really felt that way. But now that I suddenly knew, I didn't think, I knew I was fucking dying, I really wanted some Western medicine. And I was trying to say this to people, but they were just singing, and I'm dying and thrashing and wailing. And finally, they stopped singing. There was a break in the ayahuasca's greatest hits medley for a moment. And at this precise moment, I realized, there's no polite way to put this, I realized I was going to shit my pants. And so I told people this. And they were quite disturbed by this. They were, I would say, much more disturbed by the imminent pants shitting than they were by the fact that I was fucking dying, which made me angry, because clearly they don't appreciate the gravity of the situation, the enormity of my soon-to-be demise. And I got very angry, and I started cursing at them, just being like, you don't fucking get it. I'm dying. It doesn't make a difference if I shit my pants. Eventually, they wound up kind of carrying me, I don't know if you can see with the screen, but sort of fireman carry me over to the bathroom. And as I'm about to go in, one of the facilitators there, shaman, Joe Tafur, actually really brilliant researcher, and I believe he's spoken at this conference in past years, maybe even is this year. Anyway, Joe said, do you want to leave the door unlocked, Adam, in case you need help, in case you need us to come in? And I was just dumbfounded. I said, of course I'm going to leave the door unlocked, Joe. You're going to have to come in and retrieve my shitty corpse in a few minutes. And Joe looked at me for a moment. And he said, Adam, I know you're suffering, and I know you're scared, and we're all trying to help you right now, but you're being very rude. Oh. I said, I'm sorry. And I went into the bathroom, and it just hit me that, of course, I was being rude. I was being an asshole. And I didn't even realize it. It was happening so unconsciously, so automatically, that it wasn't something I was really looking at as a choice, but I realized as soon as I went into that bathroom that, in fact, it was a choice. It was very much a choice to act out of fear and out of pain in a way that was not kind and loving to people who, by that point, after a week and a half of drinking ayahuasca with, I felt a lot of kindness and love towards. And yes, I think it's understandable to some extent in a time of extreme distress that we may act that way, but what struck me was that it actually was a choice. I didn't think I had a choice. I thought I had to act that way in those circumstances. But I realized I could make a different choice. That even if I'm dying, there's an infinite range of responses available to me. And why choose this particular one that is actually hurting people I care about? And this, to me, is one of the most simple but profound ways that psychedelics can change us. They show us that assumptions that are so deeply ingrained that we don't even realize that's all they are, that they're assumptions. We think they're absolute truth. But in fact, one thing psychedelics have shown me is I don't believe there is any objective truth. I think reality is subjective, and if you think I'm wrong, you're right. I think our choices are not just in response to reality, but actually shape reality. And I don't think there's anyone out there watching this, if indeed there is anyone watching this, I don't know, but who is totally stoked with the reality that we've all collectively created right now. I mean, the world is literally on fire. You can't do better as a metaphor. So if we want to change things, we need to make different choices. And that, to me, is tremendously powerful. It's an awesome power, but it's also an awesome responsibility to shape our reality by realizing that we have so much more freedom than we ordinarily give ourselves credit for. So this all registered with me. The other thing that registered with me in the bathroom in Peru was I'm not going to die, and actually I don't even have to shit my pants. I don't even have to go to the bathroom. So it was all fine. And yeah, I don't know how we're doing with time, that very abstract. Ooh, we're at midnight. I think this is probably a good place to wrap up. So again, I want to thank Stephen. I want to thank the organizers of the conference for making this happen and allowing me to be a part of this. And I want to thank everyone, whoever is watching or listening, because yeah, I think we are at a critical juncture in the human experiment right now. And I'm not saying that psychedelics are going to save us. I don't know if anything is going to save us, but I think our odds of surviving without psychedelics are vanishingly slim. So I commend everyone for joining together here. And really what we're talking about, whatever expertise, whatever topics different speakers are talking about, I think what we're all ultimately talking about is coming together to make a better world. So thank you for listening. I'm Adam Strauss, and enjoy the conference.
Yahoo!
Sound of four hands clapping.
Yeah, can you hear us? Are you there, Adam?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many people were watching either, but I think the laughter that Mark and I emitted made up for another 50 or so at least, you know. We were howling.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so Adam Strauss. Side effects include...
That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And we're going to play this over and over again, so lots of people will eventually hear it, Adam.
Oh, great. Well, did the audio come through and video come through okay?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you were
Oh,
very
cool.
nice.
This is us laughing 15 seconds later.
Wonderful. Glad to hear.
Does anybody really know what time it is?
Those are the questions.
Yeah. All right. No, wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Delightful. We're going to play
Thank
this. We're going to keep playing this for years to come. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Cheers.
Well,